morning, everyone. Thank you for being in attendance. Thank you for being here. We are continuing our special meeting. Today's date is Friday, June 12th. It is approximately 7:15 in the evening. Let us begin. It is a continuation of our meeting, but we still like to say the pledge. So, Dr. Young.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we do not have a pastor this evening, but I will do the services. Everyone, please bow your heads. Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us together this evening. Lord, please allow your spirit to wash over all of our minds and our hearts and our souls. Lord, let us seek you for wisdom and guidance this evening. Let us be in the way that you want us to be, according to the fruits of the Spirit, to be gentle, to be kind, to be patient, to be understanding, to be empathetic to one another. Let us put the people first, Lord. Let us understand that this is bigger than any of us as an individual. Let us understand that there is no power nor authority above you. Let us act with character and integrity, and let us act in the way that will benefit the individual ratepayers and community members that we represent. In your Son, Jesus' name, amen. All right, roll call of the board members.
Director Dr. Michael Taylor.
Present.
Director Greg Young.
Here.
Director Dr. Clifford Young.
Here.
Vice President Kyle Prather.
Present.
And President Channing Hawkins.
Here. Okay, next up, we already adopted the agenda, so no need to adopt this agenda, but I do want to make a statement before we get into public participation. Yesterday, we received a report from the State Controller's Office. The report outlined shortfalls in our controls for operations, financial reports, assets, and proper use of public funds from July 1, 2016 to July 30th, 2018. It also includes an event that occurred on August 2nd, 2019. I want to be clear about that. I have reviewed the report, and I want to make this clear. This will not continue. We are here to discuss a budget. The budget does not have a retreat in it. There is no recommendation or proposal. We will not tolerate any of these improprieties and lack of financial controls. Our ratepayers deserve better, and I'm committed to making sure that they receive better. Since the start of my term in 2020, we've all been working diligently together to correct and prevent past practices that have left our agency vulnerable. I'd like to thank our staff for attending our virtual meeting this morning. They made a lot of great points. Next week, we will host another meeting with staff, with all the district staff, to listen to their concerns and address more questions they might have. We understand how this report raises staff concerns and how it might affect how they feel about this agency. The very same way we are committed to eradicating and eliminating mismanagement or appearances of impropriety, we are also committed to making this a safe and healthy workplace for our staff. Tonight, we must continue in the right direction and produce a transparent, accountable, and responsible budget. Our Chief Financial Officer is projecting a revenue decrease of 10% or $3 million, which will require very difficult decisions. However, we cannot allow the services to our customers to be impacted. This budget provides infrastructure upgrades to services within disadvantaged communities of Bloomington. We also are continuing the design for the expansion of our Oliver P. Romer water treatment facility. The proposed budget also funds the replacement of 1,700 meters the construction of a new Zone 8 reservoir to facilitate projected growth, new water lines in Santa Ana Avenue in Bloomington to improve water distribution hydraulics, the construction of over 7,000 linear feet of 30-inch transmission pipeline to allow the water district to boost water supplies in the northern service area, as well as repair and replace valves and analyzers, flow meters, and other important infrastructure. I appreciate all of my board colleagues for asking great questions and suggestions to ensure our budget is fiscally responsible. I particularly want to acknowledge Greg Young for his diligent effort in being safe and being a watchdog on our budget. He's the only person that cut more from the budget than me. I would like to thank the management team and our CFO for the countless hours in presenting a budget that includes service improvements. These are trying times that our community is facing, and I want all of you to know we're in this together and we will get this done together. Thank you. All right, moving on, public comment. Secretary Ashe.
Under the State of California Brown Act, the Board of Directors are prohibited from discussing or taking action on any item not listed on the posted agenda. Comments related to noticed public hearings and business matters will be heard during the occurrence of the item. In the effort to provide the spread of COVID-19 and in accordance with the Governor's executive order, the order of the County of San Bernardino County dated March 17th, there will be no public location for attending this committee meeting in person. Members of the public may listen and provide public comment via telephone by calling the following number and access code, 888-475-4499, and the access code is 807-977-6383. Public comment may also be submitted via email to nfaruqi@wvwd.org. And the webinar will be also available for public viewing by visiting our website.
Mr. Faruqi.
I understand it's a requirement that we do read that, but we do not have anyone available, or we do not have anyone online for public comment.
Okay, all right, thank you. With that being said, Mr. CFO.
Good afternoon, good evening.
Good evening.
Board, staff, Ricky Mammal, Chief Financial Officer for the West Valley Water District. And welcome again to our budget workshop, the continuation of our budget workshop. Tonight, I am going to discuss some of the changes that the board recommended during the last budget workshop. But before I do that, I wanted to share with everyone that this budget is a very, very slim budget. Staff and I worked tremendously to bring it down to the level where we're at in recognition of the pandemic and the environment that we're in. So I want to extend a thank you to the board for their leadership and to staff, district-wide managers for their contribution to this budget. And this budget is an all-inclusive budget, total revenues of $27 million and total expenses of $26.3 million. It satisfies our bond covenants ratio at 1.32%. So with the adjustments that was recommended during the last meeting, we actually went into the right direction. So thank you again for your guidance and helping me to get there. So we'll jump into some of the changes that was implemented in this budget that was recommended from the board as of the June 6th budget workshop. And I'm not going to go through everything individually, but we've done, some uniform, reductions. Professional service and other consultants we've reduced. The lab test was reduced, the sludge disposal, was reduced. In the general operations, operating supplies and gasoline was reduced. In HR, we've reduced, the emergency response plan, and we've reduced, the emergency response in public affairs. We've done tremendous amount of reduction there with the uniforms, programs, training, and things of that nature. So, bottom line is, we were able to sustain our budget, still present a balanced budget, maintaining our covenants ratio. The one area that I wanted to highlight to the board is on page 2 of the budget. Now, it is a balanced budget, but there is certain restrictions, and there is one area that I want to really point you to. So when we're making recommendations, we also have to pay attention to this one area. If you go down towards the bottom of the page where the blue highlight says operating budget summary, down to the proposed FY 2021 column, you'll see revenues of 27.1, you'll see expenses of 26.3, you'll see debt service of $1,062,000, and then you'll see a negative $307,998.14. What that represents is a balanced budget, and if that number was positive, that would be the number that we would contribute back to the CIP program. However, that number is still a negative. What that means is that's the amount of money that I have to come up with to satisfy our debt service. So we're still short $307,998.14 to cover our debt obligation for the upcoming year.
It's not truly balanced, we're drawing from our reserves most likely.
That's what this is saying, yes.
Now, and according to our reserves, do we have a resolution as far as percentages or amounts for our reserves?
We do have a resolution that was passed in 2015, and it outlines the reserve policy and how we're going to reserve it. Let me just find that.
It does allow for us to withdraw from the reserve with the vote of the board of directors.
It does allow, but it has to be directed and approved by the board.
Yeah.
Yes.
But is there a certain percentage or amount
So,
that's required?
That's what I have it here. I'll get it in a minute.
We have some restricted types, but I
Yes.
mean, but there's no, to my knowledge, there's.
Yeah.
But
There's
you know,
isn't
like
we
at
have
the
to
county,
maintain a
they
certain
say
amount.
we need 11%, well, you know, sometimes they,
Not in my.
and depending on the agency, sometimes they just go with a, you know, best practice that the general organizations will recommend, like a
Our
municipal.
policy allows us to draw
Right.
from the reserves, by vote of the board of directors.
Board of directors.
Now,
But
Ricky,
I'm just making sure that
I don't think there are any,
if there's a requirement that we
I don't
have.
recall any limitations. I wrote that policy, so I don't.
Ricky,
Yes, sir.
can I ask you a question? So I mean, so this is assuming, again, that our revenue declines by 10%. So-
Yes, it is.
So if the revenue, say, only declined by 5%, we probably have enough additional revenue to cover this potential shortfall.
When we do the final budget, can we indicate how we're going to come up with this 307?
As it stands right now, it's reserve money.
Okay, can we indicate that in our budget presentation?
Sure.
Well, I think
That's
It kind
So
of,
we know
it-
clearly.
Yeah.
it kind of says that, Cliff, it says reserve transfer to
Right.
or
Reserve
from.
trans- But
So we're either transferring extra money
Or
or
we're taking out,
taking some
yeah.
out. But I guess like, again, I just wanna make sure that we have a resolution that we.
It's a policy.
So I have the reserve policy here.
Yes.
And, it talks about a bunch of different percentages.
Mhm.
So I'll read it out to you. The operating reserve account, the guidelines for the, and these are all minimum guidelines.
Mhm.
It's 60 days of the district's budgeted total operating expenses.
Mhm.
The target is 120 days. We have an emergency account, which is 1% of the net capital assets of the district. The water banking account is 125,000, that has a number on it.
Mhm.
Rate stabilization account is 5% of budgeted amount of water sales. And capital, project account, it's 100% of the current fiscal year capital budget. Administrative and general services account is 5% of the estimated operating expenses.
Mhm.
So,
But that's only a policy, it's not a resolution.
no, it's a resolution.
Okay.
Ricky, I have a question for you. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that, I mean, I kind of understand the basic concept, but assuming we have the kind of shortfall we're anticipating, would that not be the kind of scenario which we could use the funds in the rate stabilization fund? Isn't that exactly what that's there for?
The rate stabilization, fund is there for, shortfall in sales, yes?
Yeah.
The rate stabilization fund, we need to revisit that. And why, the reason we put that in was to cover us from, what was it? The general manager again anticipated that we needed that reserve, but that anticipation is not done for.
Well, I mean, how much money do we currently have in that reserve fund?
I have the latest treasurer's report there, I could.
Let me ask, do you remember when we established that fund, what the circumstances were? Thank you. I bet you remember.
Yeah, I'm just thinking that since we are anticipating
Oh,
potential.
speaking into the mic, Dr. Young, you gotta turn it on.
It's on.
That, you know, even if we decline, say, the 10% and we have the 300,000 shortfall, this might be the type of scenario in which we could tap into those specific funds to make up the difference. Is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and I would agree to that, yes.
Okay.
So,
How much do we have in that?
in the, you're looking at the rate stabilization account.
Mhm.
We currently have a minimum balance of $353,895.90.
What?
Okay.
I thought we had more than
I
that.
think the rate stabilization fund should be close.
Sorry.
Okay.
It's $853,000.
Okay, yes,
All right.
okay, all right.
That's a better
All right.
number.
So
I don't have my glasses
Okay,
on.
all right.
So if the sky falls as much as we're hoping, or
We
even
should.
God forbid, a little more, we do have that fund that we've set aside in the past to help us through a scenario like what we might be facing here.
Yes, and if you remember,
So we
from-
wouldn't necessarily have to draw on our, unrestricted reserves. This would be one which we've set aside specifically for this kind of a scenario.
Yeah. And let me go back to,
Yeah.
when we started the budget process. I don't know if you remember, but I did address the fact that, these reserve accounts have been stagnant. So this is a reason why I am trying my best to, let's start to contribute, I know this year is not the perfect year for it, but if we had been doing that in the past, then we would have more flexibility today.
No, and I agree, and I think, the approach we've taken to the budget so far has been fiscally responsible. We've, again, prioritized the important projects for, being able to increase our local water supply, the expansion of the Romer
plant is very significant for our community, for us to be able to have the kind of water supply, our partnerships that we've created with local, water wholesalers and retailers, groundwater council, other things that we're doing to make sure that the ratepayers have water for the future. But one of the things I want to say with this budget that we've also done is we have examined the line items. We've tussled back and forth. We've made hard decisions. We've made reductions in the places that are appropriate so we can ensure that our fiscal house is in order. We've prioritized our spending in a different way than they have been in the years past. And so I do, and in this budget, even if the sky falls out, at least this next upcoming year, are there any, let me be clear about this, Mr. CFO, and I have my two important people here, Joanne and Linda. Are there any rate increases in this new budget?
There isn't any rate increases proposed in this budget.
Let me ask that question one more time for the people in the back. Are there rate increases in this next year's budget? 2019, 2020. I mean, 2020, 2021. Are there rate increases in the budget? Okay. Linda wouldn't tell me something that wasn't true. I do know that. All right, Joanne, are there any rate increases? Okay. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. Mr. CFO, there's no rate increases in this new budget. We hold the line.
Let me be clear one more time. There is no rate increases to our ratepayers that's proposed in this budget. The revenues that I'm projecting are based on consumption and consumption only.
And I do want to acknowledge, I mean, even though a lot of people have said a lot of things about the fiscal house being in order, and some things that absolutely we need to tidy up, but I do want to applaud my colleagues for putting in the rate stabilization fund, which now serves the purpose that it's supposed to serve, which is when we're in this kind of situation, when we have this potential reduction in consumption and we have this potential reduction in sales that we can expect, that we have a way to smooth over the budget to protect the ratepayer and to prevent the rates from going up. Now, I know there's a lot of other information out there, but that's a fact. And you gotta take all the facts.
Yes, you do.
There are no rate increases in this new budget.
No, sir.
Okay.
So with that, I'm available for questions.
I just had a couple questions, Ricky, because I know that you and it sounds like President Hawkins had some additions as far as the public affairs. So I just had a couple questions. I don't really have an issue with most of the ones you
talked about in committee.
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying that I had a couple questions.
Yeah.
Because I know one of the things which I brought up to Nassim at last Saturday's discussion was the training and making sure that we especially had the training for conservation. And I did notice it looks like a pretty dramatic reduction under the training expenses. So I just want to make sure, are we still going to be able to provide the training not only for public affairs, writing classes, but also for that conservation and things like that as well?
Good evening, board members and board president, Director Greg Young. Actually, we do understand there has been an additional cut to training. We haven't been able to target specifically which ones we will be able to implement. However, I will take your concerns into consideration when we go ahead and execute training for our employees and making sure that conservation is one of them.
Is the training for staff or is this training for our ratepayers?
It's training for our staff, and through that, we will go ahead and utilize that training so we can do landscape classes, conservation classes, and different forms of outreach.
So we're not getting rid of that part of it for the ratepayers.
Well-
Training for the ratepayers.
Well, there was
Landscaping.
Well, there was a line where you eliminate $10,000 for the landscape education, which I think would be for the rate.
Right.
Yes.
Right,
Right.
but we still have in, our budget, and, well, one, Public Affairs just last week submitted their year-long plan to the committee. We're still reviewing the draft of it.
Yeah.
We believe that, the public, affairs manager and his team are now starting to have a very clear plan of action that they wanna take. I think that in years past, there's been substantial budget towards public affairs, not necessarily, as much, program and production and impact. And I think that at least sitting in the committee, public affairs needs the opportunity to, follow according to the plan. If during the course of the year, if we're good stewards of, our funding, and if public affairs is able to, really implement its plan, bring it back to the committee, and we'll understand more of what we're funding. I think in years past, there wasn't a clear plan, but we wanna understand more of what we're funding, and if necessary, I think that the amounts that you have are a good start. At least in the committee, and Dr. Young, you can speak on it too, and that going forward, we'll see if there are some, minor adjustments that need to be made, but let's focus on implementing the plan that you guys have, and then seeing where we end up.
I compliment your staff and our consultant for coming up with that plan. Gives us some direction and feel what's going on. When is it, there's some minor adjustments, I understand. When are we planning on bringing that to the full board?
Potentially in, July, I would think. I think we need to work on finalizing it. There is direction from the committee to work with the Human Resources Department to, make some minor adjustments.
Okay.
I'd like to bring it back to the committee and then.
Close to the first of the fiscal year.
Can you repeat
The
that?
board can see it.
Yeah, the plan is to bring it to the board for approval, and what it is, it's a
That's,
year,
I'm talking about the first meeting in July.
the first meeting in July.
Yes,
Okay,
before you start spending money.
all right.
So can I ask this of the committee and maybe Mr. Fruki, so when we have come up with a reduction of $10,000 for the landscape, was that the water education workshops that had been in the budget previously?
I don't have,
Man, I'm just trying to understand, are we just reducing the amounts or are we eliminating that completely?
Well, the amounts.
The amount.
Because again, I'm just trying to figure out where that 10,000 came out of, here on the detailed one. Because, to me, and, I haven't seen the report, I look forward to seeing the report, but I would like to see us doing more on the conservation side, and so I just wanna make sure that we're still gonna have the resources they need to be able to put on things like that.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly that they need the resources. I just think that they've submitted a plan, and the committee has had an opportunity to see what direction they're heading to. Making sure staff is properly trained, because there was some stuff that we were, I don't wanna go into everything that staff, projected to do, but there was some stuff we kinda contracted out to have done, that staff now can receive training and know how to do and be able to service in-house. We just want them to have an opportunity, and I think if everyone in the building, I look at John, I look at Linda, I look at Joanne, and all of them have, had to do a little less, do more with less. And for public affairs, they need to put forward their plan and execute begin to show some results, and then, you know, we'll,
And
like
I
I said,
don't, and,
revisit.
and I don't have any issue with that, Mr. President, and again, I mean, most of these cuts look fine to me, I just want to make sure that we still are gonna have those programs, and that you feel that we have enough to, one, provide the training, and then to also provide
Like,
the education.
like, for instance,
that's all.
for instance,
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't wanna go here,
Yeah.
but, you know, again, I'd rather have them plan, because right now, the way we're set up, you know, our staff hasn't had the capability to have those online conservation programs that I see, and I'm very jealous of. I see Cucamonga, I see other agencies, and they have online conservation programs, West Basin, other ones, and so our staff is also going through a process right now of being trained in new technology, writing, other forms of communication, because the world is trained, and so we're putting more of the effort and energy to making sure we're getting the most efficient use of the staff we have. And I think, you know, Dr. Young and I sit on the committee and kind of understanding what they're doing as they go along, and we start seeing what we need to see, you know, we can come back and revisit what we're, you know, what we're investing in.
But for right now, the committee is comfortable with this.
Yes.
Okay, all right, that's all I wanted to know.
But let
Make sure
me
we cover it.
emphasize something that the president said. The plan that you're hopefully see in the next couple of weeks is really a model for other departments to look at. So when we come to budgeting for the next cycle, the board at least will have a better understanding of what your plans are for the following year. It's really a good model. We're gonna work on it a little bit, to do that. That's budget, zero-based budgeting.
Yeah.
is
If
what
I
it
can,
is.
if I can just go ahead and
Huh?
update, if I can just update and answer one of the questions, the question to Director Young, and go ahead and add to President Hawkins' statement. One of the things that we are doing right now is we are reaching to neighboring water districts, and for example, just yesterday, is today Friday?
Friday.
Yes. Yesterday, Cucamonga Valley Water District held a online water education workshop in which our community affairs representative, I encouraged him to participate, and he did participate and took notes exactly how we can go ahead and incorporate that, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are working with utilizing that option, and I also had a conference call with Western Municipal just Wednesday, also to discuss how they do their operations. So we are looking at that in terms of the funding. The CFO has informed me that it is a reduction, it's not elimination.
Okay.
And part of what the direction of the committee was, is this is our plan, however, we have a limited budget, do as much as we can with that to execute it. And the communications plan is a living document. Things will change depending on the circumstances that we're in, however, it at least gives us a plan for the year.
Okay, well, thank you, Nassim, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm just kind of going off of the summary of changes, and so not being able to see it on the detail, I'm just trying to make sure that, is it a reduction, is it a cut, but I appreciate you clarifying that, and I look forward to seeing what you all do. I really do. So, and I look forward to seeing this report as well. So thank you for clarifying that.
Do we have any more questions for external affairs or public affairs?
No, I do have some questions, but not to you.
Okay, thank you.
And I need some clarification. Linda, since I'm trying to push for us prioritizing some of our CIP projects, particularly the Roma one, can you give me a sense of the timing, of the projected timing on that project? And it is in the budget for the consultants, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Just not a detail, but some milestones.
Yes, we do have the consultant on board. We've had our first meeting, and we're also going to have weekly meetings to get started. This part of the project will be 8 to 12 months. At that point, we'll be looking to get a DD firm on the project. All told, we're hoping 3 years for the full
3 years.
project.
Okay, at what point do you think that you need to start actually receive monies for the building part of the project, construction part?
We would need that when we get the DB firm on board, which would be in a year.
In 12 months?
Yes.
So you need the funds within 12 months?
That would, or we need, well,
I'm just trying to get a good feel for it.
So I believe that, at the end of the 12 month, that's when we would have an idea as to how much we need, and that's when we will start the process to seek funding.
So next year about this time?
Yeah, so right now we're going through the design.
Do we have a gross estimate of how much funding we will need at the end for construction?
It depends on the.
I know, there's a lot of depends.
Yeah.
There's a lot of depends, I understand that.
I was thinking about 3-4 months when we figured out the method that we're going to go with of treatment. And we're going to look at how big the plant is, whether we're gonna do it in phases. We should probably have a rough idea of costs in about 4 months.
Is 70 million in the ballpark?
I think that would be as much as the whole
A
cost,
total.
but I don't think that's
That's
where we're
the
gonna
total
go.
cost.
That's the total, and we'll probably be looking at something half as much.
Yeah, we've been talking in the engineering planning committee, the 70 plus whatever million, that's for if we did a complete build out. But they're designing it to where we may do it in phases. So the cost may vary depending on if we decide to do it in phases, and if so, what size are those phases, basically.
And I beg to differ with Ricky, because Ricky, typically in a project like this, once you get the high level numbers, that's when you apply for your loan.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, but you got to do, there's some pre-applying for a
Right.
loan when your consultants come up with what they think it would cost.
I mean, most likely, because we've been talking about this at the committee, that we're gonna probably have a pretty good idea of, again, what methods we're gonna be using and the size, probably by the end of this calendar year.
Yes.
So probably sometime come around December, January, we'll be able to know how much we're probably gonna need and start working on the process.
And the estimate of 70 million is an engineering estimate. The engineering firm did give us that estimate, but that is a high level estimate. It'll get refined
Yeah.
in this process.
And it's also a total build out too.
Yes.
You know, if we did it all of it all together.
So by taking that 70 million, having the engineer's estimate, we begin the process now, because it takes time to get these worked through EPA and the state.
Yeah, because somehow we got to come up with, whatever, it said the number is 50 million. Somehow we got to figure out and start doing it soon, where we're going to get half of the project paid for, right? We've identified a good source at EPA, where we can get 50% of the project done, but we don't wanna have to pull out 25, 30 million out of our reserve funds to do it. So we need to start now thinking about, sources for the other 50 million.
One example would be
20,
state-
whatever it is.
State funds in addition to federal funds.
Huh?
State funds in addition to federal funds.
I'm talking only about federal funds right now.
No, what I mean is we would try to get the federal funds, we would also go after state funds.
Okay, have we identified what state funds?
The state revolving loan fund and the grants fund. The state has a revolving loan fund.
We've got to be careful about loans.
I understand, but there's
So
lots
our-
of money out there. It's lower than bonds.
Yeah. Okay, that discussion needs to start now. We don't wait until we got a set of plans and we're ready to go and we don't have the money.
Well, and hopefully by the end of this calendar year, we'll be able to give the finance committee some pretty good idea of what we're looking at.
Okay, good.
Do we get a nice presentation on where we are with the Romer stuff in like in a month or?
We can give you
Update
regular
on it?
updates.
Yeah, I would like to see
I
one.
think that would, that'd be helpful.
I'm the, least senior person on the board, but, so I wanna know, if this has been talked about, and I haven't had a chance to know really what it is. It's not
Well, I mean-
Linda's fault, it's my fault, but, I wanna, just some more, of an update presentation so we can understand where we are, what's going on, bring
Wait
in,
about a month or so. They just got the
bring
consultant.
in,
Well, what I would maybe-
That's the consultant for the build out, and then there's the other consultant that's working within it, and I just wanna see something so we know what we're doing.
Might I add maybe to that, cause I know, Linda and I have been talking about this one, and we anticipate that they will be coming to our committee quite a bit to work out some of these details and make presentations, and certainly we can look at taking some of those presentations to the full board, throughout the process, but I can't say if it'll be necessarily the next month, but at regular intervals, as it seems appropriate, we can bring things for the whole board to stay in the loop on.
Yes, but with the project of this magnitude, and what I understand, this would be the largest investment this organization is making for the next 5 years, right?
Easily.
Easy. So
By so
all
much.
I'm saying is, and I can tell you, because if you know me, I pinch pennies all day, every day, and I'm hearing, we're getting through this budget cycle, hearing a lot about a big old expenditure, and I didn't say big old, I said big old, which is different. Big O is bigger than big O, because that means it's really big. And I don't have sufficient command of this project, where it is, where we're going, what's the status of what we're doing. And I'm not saying that because staff hasn't done it, staff has done what they were supposed to do. I may have, not had enough opportunity to meet with you, but I would like, within the next month, 30, 45 days if possible, so we can get a proper status date, update, a proper idea of where we're going, for the next year, next 2 years. I don't know if is there a year, 5-year plan with this project? Is there currently one?
Right now, we have a 1 year,
See.
and after that, it would be the construction firm that would come on board.
See,
We're in
and
design
And I
phase.
get that, but when you spend $70 million, I want somebody that can walk me through 5 years, right? I want somebody who can, this is A, B, C, D, there's a vision that's laid out. $70 million requires a vision. It is, it's not 700,000, it's not fixing a well, it's not just fixing a well, it is not just replacing pipe. We're talking about a $70 million project that we as a board, and that maybe I'm the only one, I need to understand what the vision is and see more and more often. I don't want to step on the committee's role because you, like I said, you're in the committee of jurisdiction. There's $70 million, and I never spent that kind of money in my life. I need to know. I need to know.
It's
Well, they're
not
just
just one
starting, yeah.
Yeah.
Finance committee is constantly asking questions about the project.
And the external affairs needs to be trying to work on the grants and figuring that piece out.
It's definitely gonna involve, it's gonna involve
Piece in
full
there, too.
board and different committees for
I
sure.
will keep bringing up,
Yeah.
how we gonna fund the project?
And all I'm saying is I wanna understand the project, maybe the general manager, 30, 60 days, just give me something that lays it out, that we can see, that the public can understand a little bit better, that says this is the vision for the next 5 years, this is how we're gonna pull this off. And some PowerPoint presentation, something, so I can understand, cause I haven't seen that. Is there one? Is there
No.
one? Yes, we need something,
Because we literally just got this company on board, we were going through the RFP process, and we will be developing what that vision looks like, but I mean, there's a lot of disagreement on, do we need the full build out or do we not, within even the committee.
Right,
So-
but you know what, but when you spending $70 million, I don't wanna get in the process, get down the road, cause I look at certain, I don't wanna talk about certain projects, but there have been certain projects that we've gotten down the road, on here. It wasn't a clear pathway and plan on how we're gonna integrate it, resource it, train staff, equip it, all that kinds of stuff, properly funded, how much it was gonna cost. And we get down the road and everybody's like, oh, well, nobody really understood, nobody really knew, we canceled the project. That has happened, at least in the short time that I've been here. I don't wanna talk about which project that was, but there was definitely a project that took some investment, wasn't $70 million. So all I'm saying is, with a $70 million project, I kinda wanna understand what the 5-year vision is. And I don't think that having some kind of PowerPoint will explain, maybe not in every finite detail, but in one place, one time. You know, is there a timeline for the project? Is there a timeline that we have now? There is?
As I just said, we hope to be done with the project in 3
Right,
years.
But that's verbal. I mean, you're right, but you don't build a house verbally, you build a house off of plan, right? Okay, so that's all I'm saying. I do wanna come back and understand the vision and the plan before we have $70 million. And even if it's a rough sketch, and I don't understand all the design, I'm not saying that I do, I am the, like I said, I'm the least experienced person with this kind of thing, but I do know this. I'm gonna spend $70 million, I wanna understand what we're signing up for.
May I say something, President? I don't think that we're there at the present time to do that. From my from my standpoint, it's in a conceptual stage right now. Right now, they just got the firm on board. And I agree with you, we need that, but I don't think they're ready to get that.
Well, no, I'm not saying that, you know, tell me the type of, mortar we're gonna use and tell me the type of pipe we're gonna use.
Can I make
But
a
wanna
suggestion maybe
understand-
then to help?
Well, no, I wanna see.
No,
the
but can I make a
5-year vision for this
suggestion
project.
to try to help you? I mean,
No, help me
Yeah.
and help the ratepayers
Yeah.
that are investing $70 million. I trust you and I trust where we're going with this, but I wanna see this vision. I wanna sit here and I want something that says this deadline, this day, this time, we're trying to do this, we're gonna need this in one place at one time, in one presentation.
Can I ask Linda a
Do we have
question?
that somewhere?
Linda, do you feel that we can work with the consultant to have a high-level
Yep.
overview for the president and the community, say, in the next 30 or 45 days?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying every single detail,
We're gonna be arguing about details for a while.
Yeah, I understand details, but what I also understand is our organization, and I will say this, and we've had consultants, multiple consultants over the last 5 years that have said this time and time again. We do not have a strategic plan. We do not have a business plan. We're just kind of operating off inertia. And yes, with this new budget, it's gonna be a new day. We're gonna be asking everybody, what is your plan? Especially when you start talking about major investments. I don't care if it's technology infrastructure, if it's the physical infrastructure, if it's public relations. Everybody's gonna need to have a plan on paper, because if we're spending money, I wanna know what we're spending money on, and I wanna be able to track it, because when people make promises that they're gonna build something, do something, we need to be able to come back and do our job, which is not to run the day-to-day operations here at West Valley, but to hold people to account and make sure that we're spending our money wisely and that we're being good custodians of this organization. And part of that is requiring staff to give presentations and give plans.
Linda, didn't we just approve the 5-year water facilities master plan not that long ago?
We are,
That's not the, I don't.
we are scheduling a date for a public hearing.
I'm not sure exactly, I know we did that, but that doesn't have a bearing, that's not germane of what I'm asking for
Well,
thinking a slight.
it is germane that it talks at great length about the need for this project and why it's part of our plan.
Right, and I
But I
understand that
agree, we
need-
can certainly, again, look with the consultant to provide you with a
Right, and the
presentation.
public,
Yeah,
because this
of
is their
course.
money.
Of course, but.
We need
but-
to understand,
but
this
to-
is their 70 million.
Yeah, but-
I don't have
But
70
to the
million
point I
dollars
was trying to
in my
make,
bank account.
this has
I
been
don't have it.
part of a long-term plan.
Right,
All right.
but I agree that there's a concept in our minds, but a
No,
plan,
it's like about this thick. I mean,
okay,
it
what, the
exists.
5-year master plan,
Mhm.
or the Romer expansion plan?
The Romer plan is part of that 5-year plan, correct?
Okay,
Mr. President,
Okay.
I brought up this discussion.
right,
And I didn't wanna open up this can of
well,
worms.
we.
Do we have any more things to talk about on the
Me
budget?
and the ratepayers and the members of the public wanna see the plan.
Do we have any more?
We wanna see
Mr.
it.
President, do we have anything else on the agenda?
No,
Okay, I move for
Well,
adjournment.
Excuse me.
wait, the general manager has something. Mr. General Manager, you have something to add?
Yes, there are a
Okay.
couple of things that,
President, we have to report out the closed session.
No, we haven't adjourned yet. We haven't adjourned yet.
there are a couple of
They,
things.
the board members are trying to hurry me along. They're saying I went on, they said I went a little long on the plan for the $70 million, but that's okay.
You said that, we didn't say that.
That's what he implied.
There are a couple of things that are not in the budget, according to the CFO, that we need to make the board aware of. The Cactus Basin #2 mitigation, how we're supposed to pay the 210.
It was in the budget.
Yeah, Ricky was telling me it wasn't.
I remember seeing it in there.
Basin two is there.
You did add it?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. And did you add the Cactus Basin feasibility study that's in the contract that we have to do?
That feasibility study, I don't think it's in there. It's like $300,000.
No.
But we haven't approved the contract, and does the contract specify when we have to have completed that?
Yes, it was, the original target date was July 30th or sometime August. So the contract hasn't been approved by them yet, so that'll knock it out, 60 days or so.
Which contract?
This is the groundwater basin thing we signed with Valley for the Cactus Basin. We can look at that down the road.
Okay, and then how about the SBVA contract, the monies that we have to pay them in arrears?
The current year is there, and my thought process behind that, we've been owing them that money for the past several years. We can figure out a way to get them that money, but the current amount that's due is budgeted.
Okay,
Well, what have we been owing for 7 years?
not 7, he's saying several, meaning like 3 years?
What is it?
So there's about $400,000 or so that hasn't been paid over the past 3-4 years.
What is
And it's
What is it, Carl?
This is gonna be the first year we pay it, though.
yes,
All right.
We've been
So
owing.
paying bills. We've been owing for 4 years, but this year, we're gonna get around to paying and handling our responsibility.
and that's what
Right
the approach,
about that.
that's the approach I took, I included
Okay.
the
That's,
current year.
we right about that.
That's all I need.
Yeah, we're including the current year, you know.
That's what we're doing.
We're good.
We've been, we've been delinquent for 4 years, and now we getting around to paying bills.
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
So how are we gonna pay for the 400,000?
That will, well, we're not gonna pay it all in this year, that's for sure. We're gonna have to, have a discussion and make a schedule to repay that, or to pay that.
Well, Mr.
Not
General
right
General
now.
Manager, why has that not been paid in the last, I mean, I don't wanna ask this
Because we
question.
hadn't signed the agreement, we just signed the agreement.
Okay. But how are we in arrears if we never signed the agreement?
Well, because the original date in which they executed that groundwater council was several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So by agreeing to it finally, we do have to kind of back pay.
Back pay, but we got to make, well, we can make, payments.
Mr. President,
Okay.
this isn't on the agenda.
Okay, yeah,
So,
no, he asked
This is
about
a budget
it being in the budget and whether it was in the budget or not.
Oh, I'm sorry, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. All right.
Anything else, Clarence?
No, that's it.
Okay.
I move the meeting adjourned.
We can't move, well, okay.
Can
It's
I
not
just-
time yet to see it. First of all, the general counsel has to report out. It's
Real quick,
procedure.
Mr. President,
Procedure.
if I could just thank you, Ricky, for all the hard work you put on this budget, particularly, again, getting me a lot of the details that I've been asking for. I do want to publicly commend you for helping me with that, and I do want to thank all the managers for, once again, surviving another year with me budgeting here. You all know that I asked a lot of questions, and I do appreciate all your efforts to try to trim where we can. You know, especially this year has been particularly harsh, and hopefully our revenues do not decrease as much as we're anticipating. And hopefully when we're here next year, we're not having to look at another dire year. So I do want to thank you, Ricky. I do want to thank your team, and I do want to thank all the managers and the staff and the supervisors for all their efforts in this budgeting process. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and yes, it was a collective effort, and I also want to extend my thanks to the board and to staff, specifically my staff, my accounting manager and I that spent some significant hours trying to come up with scenarios and make it work and get the level of detail that the board needs to make a good decision or educated decision. So, thank you.
All right. According to Dr. General Counsel, can you report out a closed
So,
session?
before he does, he report out, can I ask of the board, so there are no additional adjustments or anything that's needed? Because my goal is to hopefully, we can get this adopted on Thursday, because Thursday is the last public meeting in the fiscal year.
Well,
But we did
I
give
think
you
we're
some direction.
we gave you some direction,
So,
so,
outside of that,
yeah. No, not at the moment, but I may, come up with something else to cut between now and Thursday. I mean,
we should just use the word reduce.
reduce,
Yeah,
okay,
I like that better.
okay. Yeah, we give you some direction. We're like 98, 9% there.
I think we're pretty much there.
We're pretty much there.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. General Counsel?
Thank you, Mr. President. No reportable action was taken in open session.
Okay. That being said, your motion to adjourn. All right, let me take you guys off the speaker.
I got the council some young men. Yes, they going off the reservation. All y'all let me go.